Sorry. And everybody off?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Hold on. I'm getting
Something drunk that out, boy. Messing me up, boy.
All right. What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the After 29 podcast, episode 13. What's next for us? I'm Vincent Dunstan, a.k.a. Minister V. Let's get this conversation going, guys.
Mozzie Boone, happy to be here.
It's your boy Malcolm Davis, man of steel.
The one and only Clayton Foster, big shoulder brother in the building.
All right, guys, let's go in prayer. Eternal God, our Father, we come to you on this Friday evening, Lord, to give your name honor, glory, and praise, Lord. Lord, we thank you, Lord, for allowing us to see yet another day, Lord. We thank you for the rising of this morning. Lord, we ask that you will bless us with strength, Lord, with comfort, understanding, Lord. And, Lord, we just ask that you will touch the bereaved family, Lord, of all those that have lost loved ones due to injustices and all types of discrimination, Lord. Lord, we ask that you will bless this podcast, touch our tongues and touch our minds, Lord. Let everything that is said tonight be pleasing unto your sight, Lord, but let those that are listening gain understanding. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 All right, guys, let's get it going. What's next for us? So everybody, tonight, this episode, we are coming to you talking about the George Floyd murder case against Derek Chauvin, which was the police officer who responded to a call there in Minneapolis, which, and as a result, them restraining him ultimately led to his death. So just to give a little quick background, why we're even talking about this on actually just earlier this week on April 20th, Derek Chauvin was found guilty of second and third degree murder, in addition to second degree manslaughter. Now, the second degree murder carries a max sentence of 40 years.
Yep.
The third degree murder carries a max sentence of 25 years. And second degree manslaughter carries a max sentence of 10 years. Now, what I did was I went and broke down a little bit of, I broke down just a little bit on what each one of these means. So I'm gonna just read these. Second degree murder says when an individual causes the death of a human being without intent to affect the death of any person while intentionally inflicting or attempting to inflict bodily harm upon the victim, when the perpetrator is restrained under an order for protection and the victim is a person is a person designated to receive protection under the order. That's second degree. Third degree murder, whoever without intent to affect the death of any person causes the death of any other person by perpetrating an act eminently dangerous to others and inventing a depraved mind without regard for human life. This person is guilty of murder in the third degree and may be sentenced, as I said, to up to 25 years of life. Now, second degree manslaughter says by the person's culpable negligence whereby the person creates an unreasonable risk and consciously takes chances of causing death or great bodily harm to another. That's just one aspect, or that's just one thing that they have to meet to be considered second degree manslaughter. Another one says that by shooting another with a firearm or other dangerous weapons as a result of negligently believing the other to be a deer or other animal. That one didn't happen. Another term that may be met is by setting a spring gun. I'm not even going to read that one because it has things to do with an animal. But basically, you didn't intend to murder the person per se, but your actions ultimately led to the death of that person.
Yeah, and that's basically what manslaughter is.
Yeah. So we all kept up with it. We watched the trial. Well, at least parts of it, I'm sure. We watched parts of the trial. We've been keeping up with this. We all know what happened last year with George Floyd, with Derek Chauvin, the officer at the time, kneeling on this man's neck on his windpipe for 9 minutes and 26 seconds. Yeah. Or was it 4? No, 9 minutes and 29 seconds. And even during the trial, even the coroner at the time spoke about that. They kept trying to incite drugs. They kept saying, well, he was high, or he had drugs in his system. And the coroner and the medical examiner both said that while those things were found in Mr. Floyd's system, they were not causes of his death. Had that officer not had his knee on his neck, George Floyd would not have died. But he would have died even if he didn't have those drugs in his system.
Right, because they said even a healthy person if they went through that.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, well, the defense attorney did his job. He had to just say something to defend the guy.
He had to cast doubt.
Yeah, so he had to cast out. So I have no problem with what he was trying to do.
Yeah, and I get that. I mean, that's just the law system. You know, you have to cast out. You have to build your case, even when your client technically is guilty.
I mean, he paid him $100,000. He better say something.
Yeah, well, he's going to jail now.
I mean,
Probably.
He's going to jail. We just don't know how long he's going to jail for.
Exactly.
But he's going to jail because he can only be sentenced for the max is 40 years. Because he can't get sentenced for all three.
They're not going to stack them.
It's only the highest one, which is second degree
So
murder.
basically,
which he can get up to 40 years. But he will get some jail time. We just don't know how much. It's up to the judge at this point.
right. So, given what we know about this case, you know, we know this has been an all too rare occurrence where someone has had, especially an officer, in these cases where the victim was black and the officer was white. It has not happened enough to say that, this happens all the time. We know that this doesn't happen. So knowing the fact of the results of this case, you know, what does this case and even now the verdict mean to us, the black community?
I guess it means, I guess, like, we could look at it as a slight victory, you know, because I mean it's a lot of things have happened, and I mean it's kind of favored towards like the cops or whatever. But I mean, I guess we could look at it as a brief moment to celebrate that we're heard, and you know, he's actually, like, the cop is actually being prosecuted for what he's done. I mean, the main thing is just that if cops do something wrong, they need to be accountable for it. So I mean, I feel like this can, like, show that towards the black African Americans.
Well, I mean, I agree with him. I was one of the people that a lot of people was asking me what you think he's going to get charged with. And I actually thought he was only going to get charged with manslaughter. Because all it takes is one jury to buy into the defense case. But when the verdict came back so quick, like 10 hours, I was like, oh, yeah, they must have found him guilty on all charges, and it did. You know, I wouldn't say it's a slight victory. I say it's a big victory. We got to celebrate whenever we can get a celebration. Now, we still got a lot of work to do, but this is setting the precedence that you might not be able to get away with assaulting black people just like this. And we all know that, you know, we are treated differently when we get, you know, pulled over and those things. But now the police officers might second guess it now, because now they might have consequences on it. So I thought it was really good. And I just think that now that people seeing all this on TV, they know that black people ain't been making this up our whole lives. This is what really happens, and we are treated differently.
But just to what you just said, you said that now, you know, especially given the fact that there is a slight victory here, that now people can see that we're not just making this up.
Right.
You know, we are the victims here. I mean, do you really think that people didn't see that? That maybe they really thought that, oh, it's not really happening? Or do you really think they just didn't care?
It's different when you're telling somebody than them seeing it first person on video. Now we can tell people all you want, but if they see it firsthand, you can't say, oh, it's not happening, because you see it. Right. And I just think, I mean, I'm sorry that it happened to George Floyd, but I think police officers will be held more accountable for things that they do.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully.
Because, I mean, it's still happening, and I mean, so.
Yeah, but, you know, now they see it might be some consequences behind it. Now you're going to think twice about doing it, especially with the video cameras and those things. That's all I'm saying. It's not going to stop. We know that, but.
And to touch on what Vincent said about, like, do we think that people don't know that it happened, or they just didn't care that it happened. I think some people just don't know because they're just caught in their own word. They didn't have to live with the skin that we wear. Because like they never been like pulled over because there's a car full of black guys with fitted hats on and y'all ain't done nothing. So they don't live the experiences that we sometimes have to deal with on a daily. So I wouldn't say that they just don't care. Some people just they don't know because they don't have to live it. So
yeah, I mean it's obvious that there are many people out here who really just don't see it. But then I really do believe that there are a lot of others out there who really do see it. They don't care because one, it doesn't affect them. You know, they don't fear being, you know, stopped by the police for like a simple traffic ticket. Right. You know, to them like, oh, I was speeding. I'm about to get a ticket. My insurance is going to go up, or I got to pay money to the state. That's probably the most of their worries. And you know, and I was talking to one of my co-workers, and he and I had an exchange about that, and he was like, you know, Vince, that's the most I have to worry about when I get stopped by the police. He was like, so I can never understand what it's like to be a black man being stopped by the police. He was like, I'm more worried about my insurance, you know, or, you know, getting a ticket and having to come out of pocket with money that I really don't have, versus he was like, I'm sure a ticket is the last thing on your mind. You're more worried about, are you going to make it home to pay a ticket? Right. And and I was talking, I was like, you know, there's many like me that look like me, you know, that we do worry about that. We don't even have the luxury of worrying about the ticket. I gotta get through the traffic stop first before I can worry about a ticket. Right. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was watching something the other day, and it was a white female and a black male, and they were basically talking about like the differences when they got pulled over. So the black male was saying that, you know, I don't have the luxury, pretty much the same thing you were saying. I don't have the luxury to worry about just getting a traffic ticket. So they looked up his record and everything like that, and they said that they saw that he had a warrant. So they told him to get out the car, and they put him in the back of this the cop car or whatever. Next thing, they found out that it wasn't the right person. Right. Someone used his name, and he got in trouble for that. So, you know, they thought he was the person or whatever. So they said, I'm sorry, and that was it. But for the lady, she was talking about like, well, you know, my experience, I was panicking and, you know, just so scared or whatnot. So the lady said, you know, calm down. I'm going to give you some time. So the cop went back to her car and waited while she got herself together and was able to go. Like, she even turned back, had her back towards the cop going through her purse. They pull out her wallet. But we don't have that, you know, opportunity to do that. So
we can't even pull out a cell phone.
Right.
But to get back to the question that I asked, like, what does this verdict in this case now mean to the black community? I have to agree with Mazio here that I do believe it is a victory, but I do see it as a slight victory, only because now what Malcolm said is very true. We do still have a lot of work to do, but I do believe in celebrating the victory, because even if it's just 1 out of 1,000, this could be the spark of, you know, what's to come next. You know what I'm saying? So like we could see some change here. And now I had to ask myself this too, and y'all weigh in on this. Even after this, you know, I asked myself, when I sat back and I thought about it, I was like, is this victory? Is this justice? And I had to answer it, and I was like, it's justice for George Floyd, and it's justice for his family. For black Americans, is this really justice for a whole? And I had to say no. And I'll tell you why in a minute, why I felt that it wasn't justice for blacks as a whole. Number one, you can't bring that man back. And I'm pretty sure that family doesn't care about $1 million check from the city. They don't care about this man going to jail. I mean, they do because they want him held accountable, of course. But at the same time, they would rather have George back. Right. You know, they're with them. You know, his daughter she's very young, and she remembers her dad, but she's going to grow up, you know, and get to a place where, you know, her dad is just a memory. Right. You know what I'm saying? So go ahead, Malcolm.
Well, I understand that, but you can't change the past. Right?
Of course.
So you have to. I mean, this is a victory. I mean, you can't go back. You can't change the past. You just got to do the next best thing. Yeah. And he's going to jail for a very long time. He's going to have to pay for his crime. Now, George Floyd should be alive. Yes. Of course, we all know that, but we can't change what happens. Right. But we can move forward from this, and we can use this, and we can utilize this. It's no such thing as a slight victory. Whether you win by 1 point or half a point, a victory is a victory.
Yeah, but the only thing, it just sucks that it's a victory that people have to be held accountable under the law, which is supposed to be the law. That's the only thing
Yeah.
that sucks about it. Yeah, absolutely. It's a victory that
Yeah.
he actually got charged with the murders, with the second degree murder and you know, what have you. But like I remember like when they were announcing the verdict, I was like, bro, like I was nervous. Like I remember, you know, we were alive when the OJ case was going on and stuff like that. But we were kids. We really didn't pay attention to everything that was going on. Like this is different just because the age that we are, and we saw what unfolded on camera, and we like saw the whole process leading up to the verdict. And like honestly, bro, I was like, man, this dude's gonna get off just like every other time.
That's
Well,
what I
and
thought too,
we
man.
all thought that because we've seen it so many times in every single case. I mean, look at Breonna Taylor. Forget Breonna Taylor. That was against the cop, and cops get off more often than anything. But look at the Trayvon Martin case against another civilian, and even George Zimmerman got off on that, and he killed a teenager, you know, for walking through his neighborhood,
Well,
regardless of why he did it.
Yeah, that's why we got to show up the jury duty, man. On this jury, they had 4 blacks, 6 whites, and 2 mixed. So stop trying to get out of jury duty. You have to show up so we can be on these trials.
I'm not gonna lie, I have gotten out of jury duty so many times.
Don't do that, man. So you can be on this trial.
You're right.
If it was an all-white trial, it might have would have went different.
You're right.
But since you own this trial, you can state your opinions, and your opinions matter. So stop trying to get out of jury duty and do your damn duty.
And the Sixth Amendment says you have the right to a trial by jury by members of your peers.
Your peers.
You know, not somebody who doesn't. Because I do think that a jury should be reflective of not just race, but it should be reflective of all aspects of the case.
Yeah, but
you know,
you shouldn't have an all-white jury trying a black man. It should have some black people or some people of color on there.
You shouldn't have an all-white jury, you know, trying a white man, because then there could be this. Not saying that. Well, we do know that some people don't have integrity.
But the problem is we have to show up to these things and stop getting out of jury duty.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask y'all this, because I was really a friend of mine. We were asking this, like, you know, we both said that we do believe it's justice. She was like Malcolm. She said, I mean, you know, you guys said a victory is a victory, whether it be by 1 point or 10 point. Like I said, I felt another kind of way that it was a slight victory, only because we have so much work to do.
Yeah, I didn't say we didn't have work to do.
I know
we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, we do. You know,
but you got to enjoy the victories when you have them.
So it's not a slight victory; it's the starting point.
And the reason,
and I get that.
And the reason why I said it was a slight victory, like by all means, we need to celebrate this and be happy about the verdict and everything like that. But the reason why I said it's slight is because it's still happening. Look at the what was it, the 15th?
Hold on, we're gonna get to that in just a second. So you know, one of the things I was pondering the other day was, okay, so we got this verdict, right? Derek Chauvin guilty on all 3 counts. You know, that the prosecutor, tongue twisted. The prosecutor brought, you know, to him, right? Well, against him. But now I really had to ask myself, and you know, we as Americans, whether you're black, white, Chinese, whatever, you have to ask yourself: is America capable? Number one. And is it ready to use such a conviction to begin some real change? Or is this the catalyst? This one here, or do we need more of these before we see some real change?
I mean, I think it's like anything. Just like with change is only gonna come through multiple instances. Just like during like the civil rights movement, it wasn't one thing that swung the whole civil rights movement. It was multiple occurrences of people standing up and fighting back. So I think this is just, again, it's a starting point for reform, because I think that's where it's gonna really be changed, is when they really do some police reform and like how accountability is taken. Like I think just like with in the medical field, like with malpractice, maybe they should have maybe police officers should be required to have some type of insurance for, like, I don't know, it's not gonna be malpractice, but like when they mess up, make a mistake, they should come out their pocket.
Basically some form of accountability, though. Yeah. You know, because we do know in America here, people respond more when you attack the pockets. Right. That's why doctors don't make as many mistakes as, you know, they probably would if they weren't held accountable. You sue the insurance, and eventually, you know, that's a lot of money.
But the difference between doctors, they go through years of training before they operate.
Absolutely.
We send police officers out there with 6 months training. Yeah. That's a big difference. But like I would say, you have to start somewhere. 10 years ago, he probably would have walked, right? Now, with the Black Lives Matter protests and everything else, it's in people's face. And I would say, I read an article, they said 70% of all Americans agree with the verdict.
Yeah.
So that's a big number.
Yeah.
So change don't come overnight. You have to keep chipping away at it.
Absolutely. You know, they say.
And we're going to keep chipping, and hopefully one day it's going to be better for everyone to be in America. You just got to keep chipping away at it.
Your girl Candace Owens didn't agree with that.
Oh yeah, she said that Chauvin didn't get a fair trial.
Right.
Yeah,
Of course she did.
said that.
No, and don't get me wrong. Sometimes Candace Owens says some things that if she reworded the way things she said, I agree with her. In this case, I cannot. All evidence was there.
Yeah.
There's no need.
clear.
There's no need
Yeah,
to.
it was clear.
First of all, the man was handcuffed. He was under control. There's no need to kneel on anybody. Okay, if you now don't get me wrong, I have seen assailants really try to like get loose, get away from an officer, and they will need
not
they
on
will-
their back with 4 police officers
no,
there.
and definitely not on their necks.
Right.
Now, maybe you get on their back because you're trying to, get them under control. I understand that to an extent, to a small extent. But once you got them under control, they're cuffed. There's not much they can do. They can't reach for a gun when they're cuffed, and he was laying on his
Well,
stomach.
he didn't even have weapons on him.
Right. And
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is, but you don't know that as a cop when you
They
approach the
already
situation.
knew he didn't have weapons
Yeah,
on him when
but-
he was a cop,
yeah.
when they arrested him.
But once they got to that point, where they knew he wasn't a threat, they should have backed off of him. You have him under control.
Absolutely.
Put him in a car, and until you can get the situation under control. But you stood and you kneeled on his neck with your hand in your pocket. Somebody tried to say that picture wasn't real. It was in the video.
Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah,
It was in the video. He had his hand on his pocket like he was chilling.
And it was crazy how one of the cops was holding his legs down too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but one of the cops did say we should turn him on the side, and he told him no, just stay here. So, and he is the head of that group at that point.
I believe it was. I like the prosecutor said, and I totally believe in his closing arguments. He did it on purpose. He knew what he was doing. I'm not gonna say he knew he was going to kill him, but I think he knew he was on his neck on purpose. That was his way of, I don't know, getting him under control. But then again, I even think he meant to kill him.
I mean,
Because he thought he can get off.
But wouldn't you say it was intentional? Because I mean, when they showed the video and the pictures, his whole complete body weight was on him, and you
Yeah.
saw that
It's-
his foot was even on the ground.
It's
So-
hard to charge intent,
Yeah.
but I would say I ain't the smartest man in the world. But if you choke somebody out for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, it's a good chance they won't survive.
Right.
So my pastor asked, he says, do you feel that if the video footage was not available, would the verdict have been different?
Absolutely.
And I think so too.
Absolutely.
And I think we've seen this in so many different cases that because there wasn't ample footage of certain things, or the only footage was what the cops' body cams show, which is only showing certain angles anyway. And I think these cops are very aware of their body cams, so they know what to show, what not to do. Their body,
Well,
and
they
their body.
can cut the camera off as well.
Yes, they can, and which I think that needs to go into law that they cannot, and I think that should be through a remote feed that they cannot control.
So
those.
that's not a law that if they turn it off, they get. Oh,
No.
I didn't
They
know.
have to. It's not always on. They turn it on.
They turn it on, and they do it at will.
Yeah,
because
whenever
there's
they-
been certain situations, like there was a incident last week where a cop pulled over somebody, and he actually turned his camera off during the middle time because it was getting heated. So he reached up, and you see him do it.
Yep.
Now that's what the prosecutors are going to argue or whatever. But here's the thing: that's all you got is that you saw him reach up and turn his body cam off. But you see nothing else after that because, I mean, it was off, So absolutely, I do agree that, the verdict would have been way different had those civilians not, captured that footage, even though he threatened them. He clearly threatened
Well,
them.
it was different in the police report before the video came out. They had wrote something totally different in the police report.
Of course, he didn't realize he was being video.
But then
recorded.
when that little girl, the 17-year-old girl, posted the video, that's when everything hit the fan.
And we all know once it hits media, that's it. Once it hits social media, you can't change that.
Because I think the original attorney general who was it? The original prosecutor didn't even want to charge him, so the attorney general had to get rid of him, and then they had to
got
do
somebody
it
who
again.
would take the case. And I'm going to say I don't know the guy's name who was the
Yeah, I don't know
prosecutor,
his
but he
name.
did a phenomenal job.
Right.
And he really, it wasn't about politics, it wasn't about attention. He did what all of us as the black community need when we can't speak up for ourselves. And he did an awesome job speaking for that family, and most of all for Mr. Floyd. You know,
Him and that team,
yeah,
and the whole team.
absolutely.
It was about
So,
3 of them,
yeah.
but him and the whole team, they did a phenomenal job.
Absolutely. So, and back, you know, so you know, again, like what we were saying, like, are they capable of making changes? But will this verdict be used as a precedent? Because, and I, hold on, I mean, before anybody answer that, now remember, there were no gunshots involved at all. This was just, you know, he had his knee on his neck, asphyxiation. You know, that's what killed him. Mm-hmm. But all these other cases, like, let's just say, for instance, Breonna Taylor, she was shot. Mm-hmm. You know, can they still use this as a precedent? Even though
they got to find somebody that's gonna bring charges against the officers in the Breonna Taylor, because that guy didn't do it. I mean, if it would have made it to trial, I think it would have came out different. But these things have to make it to trial first, so a jury can decide the fate.
Yeah.
And when you don't allow these things to go to trial, such as the Breonna Taylor one, nobody really has an input on any of those things.
Yeah.
I think it's going to make police officers conscious, because cameras are everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Hopefully so.
So most things will be caught on camera.
Yeah.
And not only that, I mean, people are actually taking out their phones and recording as well.
Exactly. And I think it will change. The George Floyd Act probably will pass. I'm hoping it passed in the House. Right. And I hope the senators, but you can't trust the senators, man.
Regardless of side, you know.
Well, I know the Republicans going to pass it. We just need 10 Republicans to pass it, and I think that's going to be the hardest part to do. But it's clear it needs to pass.
Yeah.
And
regardless of color.
Yeah, regardless of color, it'll ban chokeholds on everyone.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a step in the right direction. Now, we got a lot of steps to go, but you have to take the victories when you have them. And I think this is going to be a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if this is going to like set the precedents to for change.
Right.
But I mean, I think the sad reality of it, which I don't even really want to say it, but like, it's not going to change right now. Mm-hmm. The sad part about it is that things like this are going to continue to happen. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take more cases where cops are held accountable. Yeah. Which, like I said, is sad, because more innocent people, this may happen to them as well. So I think this definitely brought light to the issue, but I think it's going to be some time before the issue is less of an issue going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it might take decades.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I agree with you. You know, a step in the right direction is still a move in the right direction, regardless of how far we go. So I totally get that. And it's interesting that y'all bring that up, because almost literally, while they were reading the verdict of the George Floyd murder case, a young lady, a 15-year-old girl, Ma'Khia Bryant, was shot 4 times in the chest by an officer who responded to her call about a fight with another girl. Well, no, not with another girl, with several girls. Mm-hmm. They were at her place of residence, attacking her. That's crazy.
It is.
So, and it's one of those where, in a sense, you almost feel like you take one step forward to take 2 steps backwards. Because while we are receiving justice in a form, you know, in a way, in one area, we're being set back yet again. And now this time a 15-year-old girl. And they need to stop calling her a woman or this and that was a girl.
Well, I would say this about that case. I watched the video, and I might gonna say some things that a lot of people don't like. But that officer was in his right to shoot her. The only issue that I have with that shooting was he shot her 4 times. I think if you can shoot 4 times, you can shoot 1 time. 1 time she would have had a chance to live. 4 times you got a slim chance of living.
Yeah.
He was within his rights. Now, I would have hoped he would have used the taser. But me, Clayton, and Maggio took a concealed carry class. And everything that he explained, I saw everything in that video that we talked about. Could he have used a taser? Maybe.
Absolutely.
But if you watch the video, the first thing he pulls is his gun, because that's his training. I think we need to start training police officers better, and not quickly to pull that gun. But my only issue was, one shot would have stopped her. 4 shots killed her.
Yeah. Right. So, and I'm gonna say, hold on 1 second, because I am going to greatly disagree with you on that.
And that's okay.
Because when I watched the video as well, and my thoughts on that, just like you said, he could have pulled his taser or whatever. Now, and I get it. And I did see in the video, which people will bring up, but it says she had a knife in her. Absolutely. So he was well within his rights to calm that situation. But as a trained officer, you could have, to nullify that situation, you could have pulled your taser first, because that taser, just like a bullet, would have stopped her and dropped her to the ground, and she couldn't have hurt anybody. And then you could have handcuffed her and then figured out what was going on in that situation. But instead, and people will say, oh, well, he did this because of this. I felt like he did it because I've seen it so much on the other side. And I'm talking about with a white person with a gun, they got a taser pulled out on them and they were dropped, in which they nullified the situation. They dropped them with a taser, but you saw black skin, regardless if it was 15 years old, 25, male or female. You saw black skin, so you pulled your gun first. And then, okay, let's say he did pull his gun, right? Like Malcolm just said, that's the part I agree with. One bullet would have stopped her. One bullet to the arm, leg, or any unvital.
Well, they're not trained to shoot in the arm or leg. They trained to shoot.
But I have had officers say that in some situations they are trained.
I never heard the officers say that.
Trained to take them down in non-vital, unless they have a gun. You take now, yeah, they have a gun. I could totally understand if that young lady had a gun.
But she had a knife.
Yes, she had a knife, which is a weapon.
Which is a weapon that can cause bodily harm, and it can also cause death.
Yeah, and I totally get that.
Those are circumstances where you, as a person, you ain't even got to be a police officer. Mm-hmm. You could have shot that girl and wouldn't have went to jail.
And we just learned that in the concealed carry class. Right. So if you're in imminent danger, threatened, your life is is being threatened.
And that knife could have did major bodily harm. I
get that.
It could have killed her.
I get that.
If you was at the scene with a concealed weapon, you could have shot that girl, and you wouldn't have been in charge.
See, that's the part that I have an issue with, because we just learned you can, you're a concealed carry person. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this applies to police officers, but if you have concealed carry and you see someone being attacked, you can come in defense of a third party, but you have to know that the person who is doing the attacking is the actual initial aggressor. Yeah. Because if you came to the scene where she had a knife trying to stab another girl, you don't know if she's protecting herself or she's just attacking that girl, because you haven't seen what happened before then. So you shoot and kill that girl, and she was just protecting herself, and you didn't know it. You going to jail if you don't have a good lawyer.
So it was so fast, man. If you watch the video, it was 10 seconds. 10 seconds when he got out the car. The next thing you know, the white girl hit the ground, dude kicked in the head, and then the other girl, because the girl in the pink was standing when the police officer got there. If you watch the video, she was standing.
Yeah, she was leaning on the
car.
On
the car, not even close to this lady. The lady comes out, she hit the white girl, pushed the white girl, I don't know, kicked the girl in the head. The officer pulls the gun, and she's charging at the girl in the pink. At that point, the police officer don't know who is defending who. If that's me, it looks like she's attacking the other girl, because the other girl was standing there.
But that's where I have the issue.
But like I said, no one is disputing that. Anybody who watched that video, no one is disputing that. So my question to this is why wasn't the taser considered first? So either way, you could have dropped that girl. Okay, she was the aggressor. We don't, like you said, you don't know who was the aggressor here.
Right. When you got
a split second to make a decision.
But if I'm a police officer and I walk up and I see this girl standing in the pink when I get there, and then I see another girl push another girl down, and then I see her, the same girl that pushed this girl down, charging that girl in the pink, I'm going to think she is the aggressor.
I get that.
I'm did not attack her.
Right. Exactly.
But as the aggressor, why not take the aggressor down with a taser?
Yeah, that's what I said. I would have liked to see a taser, but
that was my only problem with it.
He was within all his rights to use his gun. My biggest problem was one bullet would have stopped her. 4 bullets, she had no chance of surviving.
So the problem that I have is, which I agree with Malcolm, and we all discussed it, I don't fault him for what he did. He pulled out his gun. If he would have shot one time, that's fine. I'm cool with that. I mean, I wish he would have pulled out the taser instead, but that didn't happen. But for him to shoot the girl 4 times, I mean, that was a little bit aggressive.
Yeah, I think it was excessive.
Yeah. Another thing I find fault in, which I'm not completely blaming the cops. I'm blaming the adults that were out there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
They did not try to dissolve the situation. They had plenty of time to do that. If they would have stopped the fight, I mean, and the cops came out there, no one would have died. She wouldn't have lost her life or whatever. Yeah. But yet they still were sitting there, and I think the guy that kicked the girl in the head was an adult. So I mean, why don't you like?
And it's funny that you bring that up because it's so often now we see that this can go one or two ways.
Right.
In the George Floyd case, it worked out for the good of the victim, for someone to be standing by and to be recording. But after that, I mean, in the other case, we live so much in a culture where we are just this lady called it the bystander syndrome, where we are so comfortable, even as adults, we are so comfortable being bystanders and just watching. Now you're watching children fight as adults standing around. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to get hurt. Even if it's kids, I don't want to get hurt because I don't know if these kids got weapons. This is 2021. But at the same time, the adults that were standing around there, I say, take part of this blame, and they are responsible for this girl's death.
Absolutely.
Just like anybody else. It may be indirectly, but as an adult standing there, you're watching children fight. I remember, and this was literally, and I remember the year. This was literally back in 1995. I was walking home from school with my sister and my mom. And my mom witnessed 2 boys fighting, and she got between them and she broke the fight up, and she said, y'all don't need to be fighting. What are y'all even fighting about? She diffused the whole situation. Right. We have gotten away from that, and today, because either it's not our kids so we don't care, or overall I'm just not getting in it, so I'm just going to stand by and I'm just going to watch.
And some people just don't care. They just want to see a good fight.
We got to get out of this world star stuff.
We have not gotten out of what you're saying to happen. We all know, like when we were in high school, we know people who just love to fight.
Right, yeah.
And we know people say, yeah, this dude came to my house yesterday and my dad was outside, watched me beat him down in the yard. So there's nothing different about how like people, the hood rats do, like people who just like to fight. Yeah. It was the same when we were in high school. Like people who like to fight, other people won't sit there and watch it.
Fights are going to happen.
But what I'm saying, the only difference today is people record it. Yeah. This has been part of what the hood rats do. Like
my thing is, once she got that knife, somebody should have stepped in.
Said, all right, this is too much. Y'all break that up. Right. Now we all know that a fair fight is a fair fight.
A fair fight is a fair fight. But once she got that knife, somebody should have said, okay, enough is enough.
And that's another thing what Malcolm is saying. Like before she even walked out the house with the knife, I don't know if anyone was in the house.
Somebody should have stopped.
Yeah, someone should have stopped her. And my thing is, if you called the cops, don't give them a reason to shoot you. Yeah. You having a knife in your hand and you called the cops. I mean, that's. I'm not saying
and we're not pointing blame. I get you. We're not pointing blame.
But the thing is, we have to make sure that we don't give them a reason to shoot us.
But Mazil, we are talking about a 15-year-old teenager who's hyped up on emotion and rage at that moment. Like I said, none of us know what was happening before that. So I get that. My problem is not with her or her judgment. She was 15 years old. I'm not saying that she was dumb, because when we were 15 years old, we had common sense to a degree.
We did dumb stuff too.
But we did dumb stuff. My problem is, like I said, my problem is with the officer's judgment in shooting 4 times and not pulling his taser, and more so with the adults because before the cop even came, because let's just say if the adults had nullified the situation, right? Right. But the cops still came, we would have a different story. Well, first of all, it would never even made the news, right? Because the cops would have just responded to, a fight, a disruption, in public, a public disruption. That's all he would have responded to.
See, and that's the thing I don't understand is like, so now she's dead. And then the people that were standing at the car are probably upset because like, a cop shot her and stuff like that, and we're protesting. But this could have been prevented if for the adults that were there should have stopped it from the very beginning, and we wouldn't have had to worry about it.
Right. Accountability does not start with the cops. Accountability starts with the adults.
No, the accountability started long before the cops ever got there.
But see, that's what I'm saying. It just like, looking at it and just assessing it, like we didn't see what happened before the police got there, but it reminded me of those situations where, like, you know, when we were in like high school and stuff, and those hood rat people that like to fight and stuff, and they have like adults around them that don't tell them no better, and like, oh, well, you better go fight him. Like, he hit you, you better go ahead and fight him. They let that stuff go on, even at their houses. We know we've heard stories like that, so that's what
we've seen it.
That's what it seemed like to me. And I know you were saying that, like, you know, your mom broke up a fight, but I don't think that is any different today than it was when we were in high school and stuff like that. It's just,
I guess it really just depends on the person.
And it's called on camera now. Like, we know there's tons of people that let that type of stuff go on since we were young.
Yeah, but like I said, once she got a knife, an adult should have stepped in and said, "Hey, that's too much. Let's break it up."
Yeah, because when I got to talking with a friend of mine about that, like literally the same day when all this was happening, you know, with the George Floyd murder case, that was our first assessment. Like, once we like really watched the video a few times and really saw, you know, well, in that moment, because like I said, we don't know what happened before. You know, I was upset with the cop because I'm like, here we are receiving some justice for one case against an officer who we all knew and felt that he used poor judgment. And
well, he did use poor judgment.
He did.
We didn't felt.
We did, and it was plain as day. But then here we are with another situation. So I had my feelings on that. But then the first thing I had to think, as a parent, I'm a parent. We're all parents in here. Well, besides Clay. But hell, Clay is a parent too, to an extent. We all have kids that Clay interacts with and things like that. He has his own, you know, nieces and nephews and things like that. And as an adult and as a parent, we don't want to see our kids get hurt. We don't want to see our kids get beat up. We also don't want to see our kids fight unless it's absolutely necessary. Right. You know, I mean, let me just say this. Fights happen. We all been in them at least once in our lives. You know, they happen. But as an adult, first of all, I'm not going to stand around and watch a kid fight. Not even my own kid. Right. I'm not going to watch my kid fight. Now, if it happens, I'm not going to, I'm like my dad, you better win. You know, we have that mentality because we don't want to see our kids get beat up or hear about it. But I'm not going to stand there and watch children fight, whether it's my kids or not, because at the end of the day, they are kids. And let's just fast forward to today. We live in a culture where too much can go wrong with these situations. You know what I'm saying? It's no more where, okay, they fought. Somebody got beat up, somebody won, they go home. We don't live in that day and age anymore. No. You know, the cops can come up and, like, as we just saw, bullets can go ablaze. Because now, yes, at the end of the day, that cop did have to use some form of judgment on how to nullify this situation. I just think that he chose the wrong method.
And can I say something real quick? So, like I said, the main people I find fault in is the adults that were there. And I mean, and I guess all the girls there were teenagers or whatever. Why? I mean, what makes you have the right to kick a girl in the head? I mean, I don't get that.
No, like, especially a man to do that when she was laying on the ground. Right.
So I definitely find the adults to blame for that. Another thing is that we don't need to get in our emotions and just quickly say that this was a racist thing. We don't know that. Once you get the full facts and get the complete story and you know everything, then you can make your judgment on that. Because I mean, I've seen it for the other situation that we saw about the black teenager that got shot in was it Knoxville, Tennessee or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
Tennessee.
And I mean, people were saying that, like, he, you know, it was a racist thing, like the woman was racist, but we don't know the full details. So, like, first, let's not get in our emotions. Let's find out everything, the facts first, and then after we know everything, then we could say, you know.
But it's hard not to get into that when we see it so much, and sometimes it's hard to discern and to distinguish between what's racially motivated and what's not, because we do see that, because we also know that in a lot of instances, and we've all experienced it personally. We've experienced it being stopped by a cop that they really didn't care about my black skin. I was already saw as a threat. My life had no value. Your life had no value because you were black. I'm not saying that happens every time. Sometimes you just get a butthole of a cop, or sometimes you might get a cop that was just having a bad day, or whatever the case may be. Or who's to say? And there are a lot of situations where, one of us, not saying us personally, but one of us blacks, we probably did do something that provoked not gonna say provoke, but caused that cop to use a different type of judgment or a defensive posture, you know, for something that we did. Because like you said, we don't always know the facts, but like I said, it's hard to ignore the fact that a lot of these are racially motivated
most definitely.
because
Yeah.
there's no value seen in our black lives.
Right.
Else we wouldn't be out here chanting Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
But that's, based on what you said, it's hard not to get in your emotions because of the history and the track record and what we know happens. But that's even more reason to resort to logic first
Right.
before emotion. Because in your emotions, you're going to think irrationally about it and not make a concise judgment about what you're seeing. So as you said, we don't always know. It's hard to judge if the intent was due
Exactly.
to racism.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to resort to logic and the facts that you have. So emotion first is never the correct solution. I know this one is hard
Right.
not to be
It is
emotional about
hard.
because she's 15 years
Yeah,
old.
yeah.
She ain't lived a full life yet. So I know it's easy to
It's
resort
easy, yeah.
to emotion just because she's a child.
Right.
But at the end of the day, logic has to supersede emotion.
Yeah,
And that's
and
one thing we talk about all the time, like especially as men.
As men,
like,
yeah.
we have to be rein in our emotions, be in control of our emotions to navigate this
Yeah.
world in the best possible way. So that goes for everything that happens, everything that we see. Logic has to be first.
So I'll give that to you because you're absolutely right about that, about honing in on your emotions. Now, what I will say is this, like Michael said, as far as getting in our emotions about it, we are human beings. Logic doesn't always
Right.
take over at first. We can't help that because we're humans. Before I'm a man, I'm a human being first.
Right.
Which means my emotions may take over. Now, what I will say this to kind of go along with what you guys are saying, and I heard somebody say this on the radio. They were saying, and I think it was Willie Moore Jr., who said that before you go and start posting things on social media and things like that, because you may be in your feelings and things like that. He was like, settle down, set back, get all the facts first, and let yourself calm down before you make a statement. Because a lot of times when things do happen, we do make statements based on emotion. Like I said, because we are human beings.
Right.
So we can't say, we're not going to feel things because, I mean, unless you're completely heartless or just, emotionless, you're going to, you're going to feel different things, so.
Now I will say I don't know the cop that shot the 15-year. I don't know if he's a bad cop or not.
Right.
He
But
looked
from
pretty
the
young.
video, he was well within his rights to doing
and,
that.
And I thought about it like this. Like, if I was him, because I think I probably would have pulled the gun first, too, because it's all this commotion going on.
Yeah, it
These
was a
kids are
lot.
fighting. Then all these adults around. Just tons of people around. I'm going to feel safer with my gun than a taser not because of the kids that are fighting, because I'm surrounded.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I pull a taser, I'm tasing somebody. Who knows what they got? Who knows what's going on with all these other people?
Right.
Yeah. And I mean,
Yeah, you only got one shot in that taser. You got 10 to 15 in that gun.
And,
So
and that's another thing. Like, I feel like that was the reason why, that was the best reason, or the best thing that he could have done was pull out his gun, because he was, when you looked at the video, you saw the girl lunging at her with the knife.
Yeah.
So if he would have missed with the taser, that could have been another life gone.
Yeah, and I totally get that. Like I said, that's why I said I just felt like it, like you guys said, it was excessive.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
so
one shot she had a chance of living. Four shots to the chest
yeah.
is it's very,
I
very
mean, and
rare
I
that
get
you
it.
have a chance of
You
living.
were trying to protect one life, but you could have saved two lives. If you just used slightly better judgment. But anyway, let's move on. Given the fact of this, that this happened literally on the same day and pretty much at the same time as we were receiving the news and the verdict for Derek Chauvin in the George Floyd murder case, do you think that happening literally on that day, and I'm going to be sentimental here, do you think that happened literally at the same time and it making national news the way that it did? Do you think it diminishes any hopes for for change for our community? Or does it serve, or does it serve, whether he was well within his rights or not? Do you think that also serves as a renewed catalyst to we do need to keep pushing for change?
I don't think at all that case has anything to do with the George Floyd case, because it was totally different.
I know it's different, but I'm saying accountability in general.
Yeah, I think the verdict in the George Floyd case is going to help the police officers be more accountable for it. I mean, nothing is going to change overnight.
Right.
God didn't create the world in one day.
Right.
So nothing is going to change overnight, but this is a start. Especially with everything that's going on. 10 years ago, he probably would have walked. With the Black Lives Matter movement, with the protests, and I'm gonna give a shout out to the this new generation that a lot of people been hating on. This new generation, Vincent is one of them.
So
Now, I might not agree with the new generation, but they fighting for a change. They showing up and they showing out and they are protesting. That 17-year-old girl that shot that video and posted it on Facebook is the reason that this verdict was there.
like I said, it helps in some cases.
And she was 18 and she testified. I don't know if y'all saw her testify,
Yeah,
but
I
I
did.
did. She was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And even when the defense attorney was throwing stuff out, she stood strong and she delivered. So give a shout out to this next generation. I don't understand the tight pants and all the other stuff,
And all the other slow stuff they do, but I give
but
it to
I
them.
am encouraged by you guys. Keep fighting.
So you talked about the protest and things like that. I was talking to Clay and Mazio the other day on the phone, and there was a statement that was made that a lot of people say that this is not the time to give up. This is not the time to slow down. This is the time to have a renewed sense of urgency. With our with what we're fighting for. But someone, and Clay can tell you who this person is, or either Mo can tell you who this person is. Someone said that the black community should remain silent and cease protests and things like that. We should be quiet.
Who said that?
I forgot who it was. I was looking at Roland Martin, and it was talking about like the whole case and everything like that. And the lady,
It's always gonna be one of them out the bunch,
Yeah.
man. So you just gotta keep moving on, and then just annoy them people. Just keep moving on.
and it's funny that everyone disagreed with what she said, but she was like, yeah, right now we should remain silent, so white Americans can like be wondering like what we're thinking or what's our next move. Or
So
whatnot.
when Mazio and them told me that, they'll tell you what my response to that was. I get what she was trying to say. Like, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. And I kind of get that, but that only works in a sense where if we were the ones in power, then that works. Because if we had any power or any influence, then yeah, we can remain quiet and not let anybody know what we're doing. The problem is, and why we're even out here, is because we have no power, that we have no equity. We're fighting for that. We're fighting for equal rights, equal power, and equal equity. Not equal equity, because that don't go together. But we're fighting for, these different things. So I totally disagree with what she said. I think this is the time to turn the volume up.
It's time to turn it up.
Yeah.
Because I'm like you. I think now that the momentum is shifting in that direction, I think we need to rock this boat forward a lot harder now. More protests. Don't stop because we got a guilty verdict. Right. That was just one. You know how many people haven't gotten those guilty verdicts? And not saying that we're dwelling on the past, but we are fighting for the future. Right. So we got to keep pushing.
If Dr. King and them stay silent, we'll still have Jim Crowism today.
Oh, yeah,
if they stay silent, if they didn't march,
I don't know about with this generation today, bro. I give them that.
So this is gonna be a bad play on words, but young generation, keep your foot on the politicians' throats, man. Keep it on their throats. Keep
Absolutely.
pushing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we do have to, like, being quiet now is not the answer. We definitely do have to keep it pushing forward, just because the police reform hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
And sadly, like I said earlier, like, stuff like this is going to happen. Some of it's going to fly on the radar because it's not going to reach a national level.
Mm-hmm.
So we know it's still happening, like, to this day. But I think, yes, keep the movement going. But, more importantly, when we see things like in the media, look at it logically and objectively before we make a decision. Because, like, me and Mazio the other day, we was looking at that case with the kid from Knoxville who, like, he was 17, 18, whatever, how old he was shooting at the cops in the school bathroom. And, like, I saw it on social media. Like, I looked at the story, like, they were saying the article said, well, not the article, the post said that cops killed a 17-year-old kid, and it was trying to, like, said it was racist and stuff. I go over to a couple news sites and read the whole story. They were saying that this lady called the cops because her daughter came home, and the daughter said that they were dating. The 17-year-old kid and the girl were dating. Right. Said that he had put her hands on the lady's daughter, so the lady called the cops.
Right.
Cops go to the school.
He's got a gun.
He got a gun in the bathroom. Yeah. Resource officer gets shots. He's shooting at the cops. But on social media, they were trying to say...
It was a one-sided story.
Right. Yeah. They were trying to say that the lady was racist and she was being a Karen and called the cops, and her daughter really wasn't hit. But at the end of the day, he shot at the cops. So like,
And I totally get that, you know, in that.
And that's why I said, like, let's not give the cops reasons to shoot us. That's a reason right there. You pulling out a gun, and like what we learned in class, you pulling out a gun and somebody just pointing it, that's considered assault.
Yep.
For him to fire a bullet, and even though it didn't hit the police officer, you know you're gonna get shot. So don't give him a reason to shoot us.
Yeah.
So, you know, as we wrap up with everything, you know, because the question is going to come up. You know, we talk about change. We hear politicians use the word like it means nothing anymore. Like it's just, they just drive the word, you know, and it's almost empty. You know, change. You know, and so the question is going to come up is, what does change look like? And you know, to me, change looks like, yes, there has to be some policies on a federal level that holds officers accountable. But change also has to come on a local level in our neighborhoods where, number one, a friend of mine, me and her, we talked about this. Like, first of all, we need more cops that look like us,
Right.
because they know the areas, they know the community. Sometimes they know the people. Mm-hmm. We need more cops. And then, and this is something we're not going to talk about today, but I'll just bring it up. A lot of us that look like us don't trust cops because the majority of them don't look like us. And you know, and a lot of times we have found out that when people don't look like us, we can't associate ourselves with them. So the trust factor is gone. And when the trust factor is gone, both sides are defensive, you know, which causes a tense situation. So I think we need more law enforcement and different, and maybe even different programs in our neighborhoods, but also, you know, filled with people that look like us. But I do think the first thing we need is laws that pass, and I say that pass, you know, by our government that holds police officers accountable. Now, here's the thing that also works in favor for police, because if, like you guys said, that cop was well within his rights to make sure that he, you know, he responded to a call of violence, you know, and he's protecting that young lady in the pink from being stabbed to death. Yeah, if that's the case, you know, cops need to be, if they're well within their rights, you know, they are literally there to protect and serve. Right. You know, then that same law in essence will protect officers if they're using proper judgment and going with their training. Because if I fire a bullet because there's an assailant charging at somebody with a weapon and I drop them, then, you know, that law will protect them as well for doing their jobs properly. So, I mean, to me, that's what change looks like, especially in the beginning. We need those laws, and we need more familiar policing in our community.
Yeah. So what you said, I definitely agree with everything that you said about accountability for cops and whatnot. Another thing I think we should start having is, like my cousin was talking about, we should actually start having courses in like schools on how to properly deal, you know, with being pulled over by a police officer. I mean, yes, it's sad, but yet some people don't know about like what to do when they get pulled over. They don't know to put their hands on the steering wheel or whatnot. But
sometimes they don't even.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's true. But
that's why
saying,
I don't think that a class like that is going to be effective.
That's true. But I mean, just saying for those that don't know, at least like by them having to take a course on that, I mean, that'll help them out or whatever. Another thing is, I feel like they should change the training system for the police officers.
I do believe that they should go through a lot more training. Yeah. Lawyers have to go through years of school. Doctors have to go through years of school. So why? And judges have to go through years of school. So
and they don't carry guns.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And they have to go through years of school. So the interpreters of the law have to go through all the schooling. Why not the enforcers of the law have to go through? I think they should have law degrees.
The reason why judges and lawyers, because they have the faith of people's lives in their hands. Just like police officers, they should have.
I'm not saying they should go to school for 4 and 8 years, but can we put them through at least
than 6 weeks?
Can we put them through at least a year?
I
think a year is fair.
Right, and I feel like the training that they go through, it should be something like, you know how they say like, well, your concealed carry permit like or certificate like expires through a certain amount of time. There should be the same thing like with cops. Like they have to go through a training every year, every 2 years.
They have to renew.
Have to renew it. And if they don't pass, then they don't keep their job.
Absolutely.
So what change looks like to me is that we pass policies that keep bad cops off the force.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because now cops can they can get fired from one police department and they can go work at another police department. Chauvin had 17 accusations against him, and he went to another police department. So with that George Floyd Act that's going to ban chokeholds, is going to open those things up where you can see all of their complaints against them nationally. It'll be a national database, and I think that'll weed out a lot of the bad cops. Because Chauvin, 17 cases, he shouldn't have, I can't even get in trouble 17 times at my job and still have a job.
Right.
So how can he get in trouble 17 times and still keep his job?
Almost like the weatherman.
That's crazy.
Weatherman be wrong every day and still keep his
It's
job.
supposed to be snowing today, but it's sunny
Oh,
outside.
we lied. Never mind.
But what change looks like to me is that when I get pulled over by a police officer, I'm not in fear of my life anymore.
Absolutely.
And that is what change means to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's basically what I was gonna say. You know what change looks like. It changes where a day where you can not worry. Like if you know you're not breaking any laws and you get pulled over, you don't have to be scared. Like I could die today. Like or like this dude is gonna treat me unfairly.
Yeah.
What's gonna spark that change is gonna be total reform of how police officers are trained and how they act when they get to certain scenes. Like, even just basic stuff like traffic stops, man.
Yeah.
Like
No one should die during a traffic stop.
I've been pulled over for like BS. I knew I wasn't speeding. My tags were good. Like, why are you?
And they
pulling
make
me
you
over?
get out of the car and search you for no reason.
And the guy, like, I remember when I got pulled, the guy was like, "Oh, hey, how you doing, Mr. Foster? Can I get your license and registration?" And then he was like, well, "Whose car is this?" I'm like, "This is the same car, person's car was when you pulled me over yesterday." And like, yeah, I got an attitude with him because like, you pulling me over. I know I wasn't doing anything, but you're just pulling me over for no reason. Like, why? I just got off work. What do you want? Right. And like, but we don't have the luxury to get belligerent.
No.
And not
Because staying calm could get us killed.
Yeah. So I think change is going to be where police know that they have to treat everyone fairly, like judge me based on the individual level, not based on because of the bad apples out of a bunch. I know like our people, not all of us are good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I know police officers see stuff every day, but don't judge me on the bad that you see every day. Judge me for who I am.
Right. Exactly.
So that's what change is going to be when the police, the way it works is totally reformed, and each case is judged by what's going on, not about what you think or like any biases that you may have.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Before I was gonna say something before you close, but you can go ahead.
No.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
No, don't. The one thing, and Malcolm brought it up, the teenager that made all this possible. I think we should thank, applaud, celebrate. Darnella Frazier? I think that's her name. Yeah, I mean, thank you for what you did. You made this possible, and we couldn't have gotten this verdict without your help. So
yeah, absolutely. Just last word as we close out. I mean, I want to say there's so many people affected by this. First of all of us are affected by this. The black community is affected by this, but then also, the white community, the Asian community, we're all affected by this. So everyone, regardless of color, race, creed, should feel something about this entire thing. Now, we're all going to feel different things about this, but at the end of the day, do I agree that this dude should go to jail? Absolutely. And I'm not, let me phrase my words right. I want justice to prevail. And if it carries a max sentence of 40 years, he should get 40 years in my opinion. But I also do, as a human being, I do think about, because of his poor judgment and his biases or whatever, not only was George Floyd's family affected by this, he had a family too that's affected by this. Now, granted, yes, he was wrong, but I'm pretty sure he had a wife and children, mother, father.
His wife left him after the incident happened.
But what I'm saying is, it was more than just one person who was affected, and this is why people need to really be conscious of their decisions, their biases, and their judgment, because your one decision doesn't only just affect you, and it doesn't only just affect the victim. George Floyd's daughter grows up without a father, and if this man had children, your children grow up without a father, and they also grow up knowing that my father was a murderer. He killed a black man because he was black, or because he just used poor judgment. So I mean, as I'm closing out, man, I offer I offer prayer and I offer, God's blessings on everybody that's dealing with this case, or that was affected by it. And matter of fact, to all of us, because we're all affected by it. All of us could easily be George Floyd. All of our children could easily be Dante Wright or Micaiah Bryant. All of that. You know what I'm saying? I pray that God just let his hands just. I pray that God just let his hands touch each and every one of us, that we would all use better judgment, and any biases and any racism or any prejudice in any of our hearts, because blacks, we have it too. This is racism is not a white thing. Right. Prejudice is a human condition. And I just pray that God just removes any of those fallacies from any of our lives, any of our minds and our hearts. Because if we can all have those things removed from us, we can all live in a world where we all get along better. I would rather you deal with me, like Clay just said, on an individual basis. Was I belligerent or was I compliant? If I'm compliant, I get to go home and I shouldn't even have to worry about anything.
And even if you're not compliant,
I should still go home or go to jail.
Yeah, non-compliance should not mean death.
Exactly. Right. So like I said, man, I just pray that God touches us as a people, not as a race, but as a people. I mean human, all colors. I pray that God touches us and that he guides us and that he leads us to do his will. And we all know that God's will is perfect and God's will does not harm. It does not hate. So if we can get in line with that, I think this world will be so much better. So been another episode of the After 29 podcast. Take care of each other. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.